There is a danger to dead selling in the middle of your matches, and I want to make sure you avoid falling into that trap. That's why we are breaking it all down next. I'm Mike Quackenbush, and this is Till We Make It. Throughout my career, I've been very fortunate because I've worked in front of the cameras as a pro wrestler, referee, ring announcer, and commentator. And I've also worked behind the scenes in wrestling as a promoter, booker, agent, coach, consultant, and a bunch of other things as well. And I bring the sum total of all those experiences and I share it here with you week in and week out on Till We Make It. If you're down with that, what are you waiting for? Go ahead and join the Till We Make It tribe. Subscribe right now. And if you want to see Till We Make It remain a weekly channel here on YouTube, you've probably heard me mention my goal for this year is 100 patrons over on my Patreon page. And if you thought you would wait until the last minute to sign up for my Patreon, it's December. This is the last minute. The last minute has officially arrived, and I'm not close enough to reaching my goal. That's why I need your support now more than ever. Jump on the link down below in the descriptus. You can join our community for as little as $5 a month, and the moment that you do, you'll begin unlocking more than 800 posts overflowing with wrestling knowledge and experience. I'll see you over there. Today, we are talking about the dangers of dead selling. And this is different from no selling. So what is dead selling? Dead selling is when you make the performative choice to simply lay flat on the mat. That's all you are doing. You are not responding in any way. So it doesn't mean that you aren't registering any pain that you are feeling, right? That is no selling. It means that you are making the choice to remain motionless. And when you dead sell, there's a real danger, especially if you're working as a babyface. And I want to get really specific about that right now. Up front, I think it's important to mention this. There are a few scenarios in which I think it does make sense to dead sell. So let me outline those for you very quickly. There are three which spring to my mind. So up first, if you're going to choose to lie still, be relatively motionless, show no signs of life following what is supposed to be a knockout blow, I think a dead sell is a perfectly fine choice to make. Second, if you're going to make the choice to dead sell, to heighten the tension so that a moment later you can roll away from an opponent who is jumping off the top rope, like a spot that people often refer to as playing opossum. If you are doing that so that at the last moment you can roll away, but first heighten suspense and tension before that leap off the top rope comes, I think dead selling is a choice you could make there, and I think it's fine. And last but not least, this one is a little tricky, so listen carefully. If you are using it to increase contrast, specifically at the end of a stalking heat, right before your comeback begins, you could deploy some dead selling to heighten the contrast of you being relatively still, appearing to be lifeless, motionless on the mat, and then springing into action with an explosive comeback. If you're using that as a contrast heightening technique, I think it's a fine choice to do a little bit, not too much, dead selling in your match. But excusing those three scenarios from the conversation, I think this is something you want to avoid at all costs. If you're learning something from this, by the way, please leave a like. I should ask for that earlier in the videos, and I never remember. Thank you for that. You may know that I break up every component of a pro wrestling match into one of three categories: mechanical, performative, and structural. The mechanical piece, that's referring to the moves, the spots, the reversals, and the escapes that we use in the ring. And the structural piece, that's the underlying architecture that informs and gives shape to the story that we're going to tell. But when we're talking about dead selling or selling of any type, we're talking about the performative aspect of a pro wrestling match. This is a performance choice that you are making. And choosing to dead sell, setting aside those three scenarios we just discussed a moment ago, is a dangerous choice to make. Now, sometimes it's actually the failure to make a choice. Here's what I mean by that. Sometimes we get so blown up We are simply so gassed out from being in the ring. We're hot, we're sweaty, we can't catch our breath, we can't remember what's next, whatever the case might be, that we just lie there in our heads trying to figure out, how am I going to recover in time for the next spot? What is the next part of the match? Or what is logical? What do I need to be inventing on the fly so that it fits with the story that I've already told? And we have retreated into our mind and we are forgetting that we are on stage performing. And to lie there motionless like this betrays that to the audience. It's actually a failure to make any choice because we've stopped performing entirely. We're lost in our thoughts. But if that's not the case, if you are actively choosing to dead sell, I want to caution you against this. If you're working as a babyface, I want you to stay away from this. And if you're working as a heel and you catch your babyface doing this, you've got to do something to right that ship as quickly as possible. And I want to break down 3 different aspects of this for you to give serious consideration to. Number 1, if you are failing to make eye contact because you're not showing your face to anyone in the audience, you're making it infinitely harder to build sympathy. And that's what you're supposed to be doing by selling, by shining out your pain to the audience. They will sympathize with whatever it is you are struggling against in the ring. And if you aren't showing them your face because you're just flat on your back or face down in the mat, relatively motionless, you're doing nothing to build sympathy, no matter what's coming next in the match. Number 2 on my list is closely related to number 1. When you're dead selling, you're not doing anything to build rapport with the audience. And that means you might end up getting to the part of your match where you plan to run your comeback, but no one's made an investment in you. And then your comeback plays to relatively no reaction. Even worse, you might end up in a third act, which is supposed to feel climactic, that simply has no sizzle whatsoever because you never built a relationship with the audience. This last one on my list is as relevant to those of you out there just starting your apprentice phase in wrestling as it is to those of you out there already enjoying veteran status. Remember this: audiences don't care about the wrestler who always wins. They care about the wrestler who always tries. And when you're dead selling, lying motionless on the mat, it appears as if you aren't trying at all. If you want to learn even more about the performative components of professional wrestling, well, I've got a few recommendations for you. Number 1 is that video appearing on screen right now. Go ahead and click on it, and I'll see you over there. Or pick up my book, 7 Keys to Becoming a Better Performer, a book I wrote for fellow pro wrestlers, which you can get as a digital download or a print book over on Amazon.com or as an audiobook over on Audible. There are links to all of that down below in the descriptus. Also appearing on screen is a link to my Patreon.